You need to leave because Rowan and his wife, Robyn, are coming back for their childbirth," my husband exclaimed loudly. I asked for clarification, and he nodded with a smile. "If it weren't for you, things would be smooth," he added. "I've always thought so. I despise people who always argue with their so-called logical reasoning. There are plenty of other women out there. Just because we've been together for a long time doesn't mean we have to stay together forever." It was my husband who made this bold statement. Whatever troubles he may face in the future, it's no longer my concern. He might think he can just sleep it off and forget, but not this time. He should take responsibility for his words. My name is Ophelia, and I'm 55 years old. Currently, I live with my husband, Donovan, just the two of us. Donovan is 60 years old, 5 years my senior. He recently retired, seeming pleased, saying, "Maybe I'll take it easy from now on and enjoy some fishing as a hobby." Meanwhile, I run a small but successful apparel business, which is doing quite well, thankfully. The reason we can afford an apartment with a bit higher rent is thanks to this business. Donovan used to be supportive, but things changed after his retirement. First, his daily routine changed. Now that he's retired and always at home, he has many days with no plans. As a result, he started to lead a more relaxed lifestyle, with an increase in days spent lounging around. He would stay up late watching TV or sleep past noon. If it's occasionally, that's fine, but when it continues for several days, I can't help but become concerned. Even when I suggested, "We're not young anymore, maybe we shouldn't disrupt our daily routine so much," he wouldn't listen. Instead, he would snap at me, saying, "I've worked hard all my life. Let me do what I want. Don't tell me what to do." Another issue was his boredom. He had few friends to begin with, and his only hobby was fishing alone. After retirement, he seemed to have too much free time. What he started doing was nitpicking my housework. Frankly, housework is not my forte due to my busy work schedule. I rely heavily on the latest home appliances. I depend on a cleaning robot for cleaning and electronic cooking devices for meals. But my husband didn't like that. "These robots can't possibly clean every nook and cranny. It's more reliable to do it by hand," he argued. Saying such things, he forced me to do the mopping. Additionally, there was a time when he complained about the dinner. "Stew should be slowly cooked in a pot with high-quality wine. It won't taste good with cheap wine," he argued. Even though he had never cared before, he started imposing his preferences on me. At times, he would even say, "Stop looking for easy ways out, you lazy housewife." I would consider his requests if I had the time, but I'm too busy with work to have such leisure time. After all, if he's retired and has free time, he could do it himself. When I pointed this out, he got furious and said, "Just because you're working, don't get too full of yourself." I couldn't help but understand why some people opt for a divorce later in life. Still, I endured, thinking of all the hard work we've put in over the years. But then something happened that made him even more unbearable. That something was the pregnancy of our son's wife, our only son, Rowan. He and his wife, Robyn, announced that she was pregnant. Rowan and I are not blood related. He is Donovan's child from a previous marriage. Donovan and I remarried when Rowan was about 10 years old. Upon hearing the pregnancy news, Donovan was ecstatic. "Our first grandchild! Yes, it's exciting," he exclaimed. I was happy too, but Donovan's joy was extraordinary. I think he was experiencing what you might call an over-enthusiastic grandparent. That's why things turned out the way they did. The main reason why he was so excited about the pregnancy announcement was probably because Robyn said she wanted to come stay with us for her delivery. Robyn was raised in a single-parent household. She turned to us this time because her mom was too busy with work and couldn't accommodate her. Donovan was all too eager to help. "I want to welcome the baby in the best possible conditions," he said. With that, he started preparing. That was fine in itself, but for some reason, he insisted that I be involved in everything. "The crib should be this one. Just in case, get all types of baby formula. Oh, and we need to stock up on diapers too." He would arrogantly give orders. But I was busy with work and household chores. When I managed to find time to prepare amidst my busy schedule, I often received complaints that it wasn't right. "Not like that, I told you," he'd say. "That's not what I meant. Hey, enough is enough. I get that you're excited, but if that's the case, do it yourself. Stop relying on me for everything." He must have never imagined I would stand up to him like that. He was stunned into silence. "Our first grandchild, you know, and you say such distant things. I see it's because you're not related by blood to Rowan. You don't find him dear, do you?" "That's not it at all. Don't say such terrible things. You're just going too far. I thought Robyn wouldn't want to come if she knew you were doing all this. It doesn't seem like a relaxing environment." Donovan tried to retort, but couldn't find the right words. He clenched his teeth in frustration and went into his room. I shouldn't have said that much. It was just that he was too enthusiastic, and I ended up saying too much because I was being stubborn too. And to be spoken of Rowan in such a manner was shocking to me as well. I do want Rowan and Robyn to feel relaxed. That's exactly why I had to stop Donovan's reckless behavior. I wanted to make amends with him afterward, but he wouldn't come out of his room. With no other choice, I said through the door, "I'm sorry about yesterday. I'm off to work now," and left for work. That day, I had many troubles at work and returned home much later than expected. At this rate, dinner would be late. What should I make? Thinking about this on my way home, I found Donovan already sitting at the dining table, waiting. "I'm home. Sorry for being late. I'll make dinner as quickly as I can." There was no response from him. I moved around busily, trying to make dinner in a hurry. Donovan just sat there watching me, as if to pressure me. If he's going to be home anyway, he could at least make dinner. At the very least, he doesn't need to rush me like this. Finally, I managed to prepare grilled chicken and placed it on the table. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's eat." Without a word, he immediately started devouring the grilled chicken. "Were you that hungry?" I also took my seat and began eating the grilled chicken with my fork. Before I was halfway through my meal, he had finished eating. After finishing, he sat up straight and looked at me. "What?" I asked, and he replied in a low voice, "You're always about work, 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 neglecting the household chores." His unexpected words almost made me drop my fork. "What are you talking about? I'm not neglecting anything." "Don't play dumb. Like today, for example, just grilled chicken, no salad, no soup. That's unacceptable." Enjoying the story so far? Show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's dive back into the story. Indeed, I usually serve salad and soup with meals, but it wasn't out of laziness today. He was watching me so intently, as if hurrying me, that I thought he wanted to eat quickly. So I hurried things along. Even though I explained this, he seemed unconvinced. "It's not just that. You negate everything I say or do. You must be looking down on me because I'm retired now. You think you're better because you're working." "That's not true at all," I protested. But no matter how many times I denied it, he wouldn't be convinced. I was getting increasingly frustrated. "Let's stop this fruitless argument. Rowan and Robyn will be visiting soon, and I don't want to greet them in such a negative atmosphere." At this, Donovan smirked. "Yeah, that's right. I've been thinking the same. That's why I've come up with a great solution." "A great solution?" I tilted my head. He loudly said, "Rowan and Robyn are coming back for their childbirth, so you need to leave." What seemed unbelievable, but he wasn't joking. "Leave?" I asked again. He nodded with a smile. "I think things will go smoothly if you're not around. I've always thought so. I despise people like you who always argue with their so-called logical reasoning. There are plenty of other women out there." I was shocked. After decades of marriage, to hear such words, Donovan seemed to be getting carried away. His words flowed non-stop from his mouth, pouring a stream of complaints directed at me. "First of all, you lack respect for me, the head of the household. Always complaining instead of just listening quietly. Complaining I respect your wishes as much as I can, but it's you who keeps making unreasonable demands. Besides, shut up, shut up. I hate the way you talk, so arrogant talking down to me. Just be quiet and leave. I don't even want to see your face." Donovan slammed the table with force. At this point, it was clear that nothing I said would make a difference. I simply said, "Understood," and returned to my room. The next morning, I immediately called a moving company. After being treated that way, I wasn't going to stay any longer than necessary. Luckily, it wasn't the peak moving season, so I was able to get an estimate and book the movers without any trouble. All I wanted now was to complete everything while he was away. But he was almost always at home. So, what to do? As I worried, it seemed like divine intervention occurred. "I'll be going out for a bit from tomorrow," he said. He is the type who thinks everything resets after a night's sleep, so he spoke to me quite normally. Apparently, he was invited by his fishing buddies for an overnight trip. This was my chance. There was a slight awkwardness between us. Perhaps this time, even he realized he had gone too far. Yet there was no apology from him. Perhaps he was hoping to pretend yesterday's outburst never happened. He's always been like that. Until now, I've been the bigger person, turning a blind eye. But after what was said, I can't just let it slide anymore. The moving estimate came quickly. I planned to take all the furniture and appliances with me, but it was less than I expected. The issue was finding a place to move to, but that was resolved smoothly as well. A person named Sophia, whom I knew through work, offered to let me stay at her place, and it was a brand new building, no less. "Are you sure about this?" I asked again. "You have helped me so much," she said. So, I decided to accept the offer. I went to see the property right away. It was more than satisfactory, with no issues at all. I then completed the move while Donovan was away. Thanks to his tit-for-tat, I had no regrets. Perhaps I'd grown weary of life with him too. The night after I moved, Donovan called. Thinking, here it comes, I took a deep breath before answering the phone. "Hello, Ophelia, what is this? What's going on?" Even from his voice, I could tell he was panicking. I almost laughed, but responded calmly. "What do you mean? The house, it's empty. What's happened here?" "Oh, you told me to leave, so I did just that. I took everything from the latest appliances to my favorite dining table." "I just told you to leave, not to take everything from the house. That's crazy." "What? It would be crazy to leave them behind. I bought all those things with my own money. You said they weren't necessary and didn't contribute a cent." He fell silent. But after a moment, he managed to say, as if squeezing the words out, "Well, it's fine. Rowan and Robyn are coming tomorrow. We'll manage without the furniture. Imagine their surprise when they see that room." "Good. Then it worked out perfectly. Say hi to Rowan and Robyn for me." There was no point in continuing the conversation. I hung up quickly. There was another significant matter, but since he hadn't noticed, I didn't mention it. The next day, Rowan called to say, "We're almost there." "Didn't he tell you I've left the house?" "Really?" John seemed surprised, but didn't probe further. In fact, I sensed more relief than shock in his voice. "Wow, you're not there. We can do whatever we want then. You're not coming back, right?" "That's right. I always had a feeling, but John probably found me annoying. He didn't like that I didn't coddle him because he was a stepchild. 'You're not as kind as other women,' young Rowan once told me. I thought I was raising him with love so he wouldn't struggle in the future. Well, it's better this way. We don't have to walk on eggshells around each other. Robyn wasn't fond of you either, so she'll be happy. Take care." Being overly talkative must be something he inherited from his father. After hanging up the phone, I found myself pondering this. I was somewhat on edge that day, making it hard to focus on work. I thought I might receive a call regarding the furniture and appliances. Previously, Robyn had mentioned, "Having all these appliances must make things so much easier for you." I secretly suspected that their return might be motivated by these conveniences. Contrary to my expectations, there were no calls that day. The call finally came at the end of the month. "Ophelia." I immediately knew the reason for my husband's hesitant call, but I pretended to be clueless. "What about the rent?" "Yes, what about it?" He probably wanted to ask for the rent due to his pride, but couldn't bring himself to say it. The rent for the apartment I lived in with Donovan was $1,700. I was the one paying for it all. My retired husband couldn't afford it. He might manage for a while using his retirement fund, but it would eventually run out. He should just come out and say it since he called, but he hemmed and hawed. Finally, I decided to confront him. "What? You're not expecting me to pay the rent for an apartment I'm not living in, are you?" No, I mean, you're the one who told me to leave, remember? And now you're coming back to me for help?" His pride wouldn't allow for such a request. As expected, he changed the subject. "Ophelia, are you okay? Do you have a place to stay?" "Yes, thanks to the kindness of people around me, I found a place. I'm living comfortably." Saying this would make it impossible for him to ask me to return. Not that I had any intention of going back, just to be clear. "Oh, that's good. Rowan and Robyn seem lonely. I thought maybe if you're willing, you could come back." This was something he would never say under normal circumstances. He must be desperate. But I had no intention of returning. "Really? But didn't both of them dislike me?" "No, that's not. Well, it's fine. I have something to discuss with you anyway, so I'll come over." "Yes, I needed to have a very important conversation for the sake of my future life." Mai replied brightly. "Yes, I'll be waiting." Later, I visited the apartment for the first time in a while. It's been a while. Donovan had dressed up unnecessarily. Dressing up wouldn't change anything. As we walked into the living room, I saw Rowan and Robyn sitting there. They must have realized they couldn't live like that for long. New furniture like a sofa, table, and refrigerator had been set up. Rowan waved casually while Robyn glared at me but greeted me nonetheless. The atmosphere was unpleasant. I wanted to get things done and go home quickly. Prompted by Donovan, I sat down in a chair. "So, what's this about?" Grateful that he broached the topic first, I decided to proceed with the conversation. "It's about this. I think it's best to handle these matters promptly and properly." Upon seeing what I handed him, his face turned pale instantly. "You're planning to divorce me?" He was trembling as he looked at the divorce papers I had filled out. "Yes, ever since you told me to leave, I've been planning to do just that. Did you really think I wouldn't take you seriously?" Donovan fell silent. It was probably spot on. When his emotions flare up, he tends to blurt out whatever is on his mind at that moment. This habit of not thinking about the consequences has reportedly caused him trouble at work multiple times. "I don't want to see your face. There are other women out there. What else was it anyway?" After being showered with every conceivable insult, I couldn't see a future with you anymore. He probably remembers saying those things, even if he didn't think them through. Donovan's head remained lowered, sweating profusely. "Yeah, I said it, but that wasn't... it wasn't what I really meant. You can't say such things without meaning them. I'm appalled." "Well, it doesn't matter to me anymore. I was shocked. I can't do this anymore. That's all." Looking directly at him, our eyes met. He immediately flinched and averted his gaze from mine. "Won't you reconsider? We've come so far together. After all we've been through, to be told such things, it's impossible. I can't be with you anymore." I stated my position firmly. He let out a long sigh. The silence was so intense it was almost painful. Unexpectedly, it was Robyn who broke that silence. "Excuse me. The one who's being most inconvenienced here is me." Turning towards Robyn, I tilted my head, and she glared at me with eyes full of resentment. "What do you mean? I thought it would be perfect here with you around. A clean house and all the latest appliances. I came here expecting to be fully taken care of. And now to be caught up in this marital dispute. It's a huge nuisance." Robyn let out an even bigger sigh than Donovan had earlier. She was angry with me because she had expected a pampered princess life here. But it didn't turn out as she had hoped. It was a complete misunderstanding. If she's unhappy, she can leave, go back to her parents' house or anywhere else. Her decision to stay here is her own. When I conveyed this, Robyn's face turned bright red with anger. What? How dare you speak to me like that after I went out of my way to come here? I never asked you to come. Robyn looked like she was about to scream. Her breaths were heavy and rapid. But that's ridiculous. I told my hopes to Donovan, and you have no idea how much I was looking forward to this. And now this. It's too much. Finally, Robyn burst into tears. John was beside her, trying to console her, but this made things a bit clearer for me. Donovan's excessive enthusiasm for his grandchild was likely fueled by Robyn's expectations. Being relied on and flattered probably went to his head, making him act like he was on top of the world. However, that doesn't change anything. Robyn was too upset to have a coherent conversation, and Donovan was still frozen in place, sweating. Staying here any longer was pointless. There's no use in me staying any longer. I'm going home. We'll settle the divorce through a lawyer. As I stood up, it was John's turn to shout. Running away, you coward! Not taking any responsibility and just stirring things up. I was shocked by the sheer unreasonableness. It was a classic case of blaming the victim. I approached John and stood by his side. Since he was sitting close to Robyn, I ended up looking down on him. What do you want? How old do you think you are? I'm 35. But I took a deep breath and glared at Rowan sharply. So what responsibility do you think I have to take care of a 35-year-old boy and his wife? Or maybe the responsibility to take care of a 60-year-old dad? John was gaping, at a loss for words. I couldn't stop myself anymore. All of you are adults. Enough is enough. Who's been stirring things up? Despite my best intentions to keep the peace, you've been using me like a stepping stone. You can't expect me to always smile and comply. Hey, calm down, Mom. Don't act like a child now. I had shouted so much that I was out of breath. I took a deep breath to steady myself. At least, John, I've always cared for you. I tried to raise you as my own child. But if that didn't come across, that's my fault. John started to say something, but then fell silent. I quickly grabbed my things and left the room hastily. No one followed me out afterward. My husband agreed to the divorce quite easily. We decided on no alimony for either side. He said he couldn't afford the apartment's rent and would move out. Donovan, who had never done any housework before, living alone from now on, will likely be a significant challenge for him. In a letter passed through the lawyer, written in the familiar handwriting of my ex-husband, it said, "Thank you for everything." He even suggested getting back together, but I firmly refused, and he seemed quite dejected. John and Robyn decided to move to Robyn's parents' house for their delivery. Robyn was reluctant, but John convinced her. After the divorce, John called me once. "I'm sorry for everything. I'll try to be a parent like you," he said, sounding embarrassed. Perhaps John hadn't disliked me as much as I thought. Maybe he just couldn't express himself honestly. I ended up buying the new house I was renting and still live there. Work is going well. I was a bit tired right after the divorce, but now I feel refreshed. The relief of not having to take care of anyone is immensely liberating. I don't know how many more years I can work, but I plan to do my best as long as I can. Of course, I'll enjoy my personal life too, and in my heart, I secretly wish for Rowan's happiness. Let's briefly conclude our story. Ophelia, having decided to leave her husband Donovan due to their irreconcilable differences, moves out and starts a new life in a rented house. Despite initial challenges, she finds solace in her newfound independence and focuses on her work. Donovan, realizing his mistakes, regrets his actions and attempts to reconcile, but Ophelia stands firm in her decision. Meanwhile, John and Robyn, despite their initial disagreements with Ophelia, begin to understand her perspective and appreciate her efforts. As time passes, Ophelia finds peace and contentment in her new life, cherishing the freedom to live on her terms and secretly wishing for the happiness of her loved ones. Thanks for watching. How did you find the story? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more awesome stories like this. Your feedback and support mean a lot.
All right, everyone's presentations are done.
Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward.
Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak.
There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer.
Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email.
Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly.
The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk.
He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale.
Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam.
My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father.
Well, you could hardly call it being raised.
After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing.
Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school.
Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out.
I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything.
The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke.
Take care. That was our last conversation.
Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment.
Yet, my father never visited me even once.
I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education.
Listen up.
Our work can change the future of our employees.
Don't drag us down.
On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly.
There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle.
At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state.
But that was long ago.
Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose.
I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said?
I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him.
Someone was watching me with a smirk.
In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go.
You are the latter.
It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened.
Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results.
As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty.
Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey.
I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day.
Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today?
Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today.
I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly.
They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job.
Having joined the company wanting to do customer service.
I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look.
To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally,
Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance.
As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick.
If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America.
Nick began the presentations.
Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them.
The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me.
There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer.
He was likely talking about me.
I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently.
Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right.
After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking.
The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation.
Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life.
I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving.
I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home.
The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk.
In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale.
Nick! What's wrong?
Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick.
And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires.
Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen.
They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday.
Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips.
The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally.
President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles.
Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief.
Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction.
Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?
We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs.
Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan.
If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized.
Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do.
I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you.
Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you.
Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind.
Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening.
After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason.
He was demanding, get his boss here immediately.
It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training.
What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next.
Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation.
If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you.
I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was.
As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor.
I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room.
What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner.
No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread,
hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry.
Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology.
He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done?
Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason.
I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him.
Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand.
I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor.
Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside.
Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part.
I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed.
He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important.
You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter.
Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble.
Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation.
Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment.
Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary.
Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too.
I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.